Namaste. Welcome back to Smriti. On the topic of yoga and Vedanta, Sri N.V. Raghuram Garu, our Smriti member, supporter, it's such an honor to have him share the abundance of knowledge, Vedic knowledge, related yoga, Vedanta knowledge, and beyond. And today's episode is a special and a very informational recording that I have chosen, basically capturing biographies of our scholars, esteemed scholars in Smriti. So speaking on that, we have Sri Raghuram Garu. Namaskaram Andi. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion here today. And today particularly, I wanted to know your story of Raghuram Garu as a person and living in this world, yogic world, Vedic world, Indian way of living the very book of knowledge, the way of knowledge. I wanted you to share your story, your life story, and particularly relating to the Vedic, Vedanta, yoga. And you have always inspired us. I've heard you before several times from the time decade or so, 2000.
Right.
And but I would like to know even beyond how it all started. What was your first realization? It may come from your life, your guru's family. We're all with open ears today. Share with us your story.
Normally, this question, Satyagaru, I would have avoided because whatever that subject I would like to tell, let them people listen to it and then go with that. But one time, what happened was that one of the foreigners who was there in Prashanti from, I think she was from Belgium, and then after my talk, she came to me and said, "Oh, your talk was wonderful. I really enjoyed. Thank you so much for giving such a wonderful talk." I replied to her, "You see, of all the other people, I'm the one who frequently visit foreign countries. So therefore, my English is polished, my expressions are polished, so that you can grasp it much better than anybody else's lectures." She said, "Don't fool me. Yours is the only talk where I can see the experience behind it." So that made a big sense to me, saying that it's not just only the language or the subject that we talk, but I think the words carry the experience behind it. And once we share that with the people, probably it inspires at least few people who are really wanting to be in that path. These are the kind of things which may inspire. Uh, my little journey, in fact, also I got inspired by reading Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Vivekananda and people like that. So therefore, that makes sense that if particularly, you are asking me because that we are our close proximities. Therefore, it makes sense. So it makes sense. So way back, actually, when I come from Khammam, which is Bhadrachalam area and Rama's place, and basically my father was Sitaram, and we all brothers were one Ram or the other. I'm Raghuram, but then others are all there. You think of any name of Ram, they're all there in our house. So that shows that how much we are dedicated towards that. And then right from the childhood, we used to play various acts and dramas and small skits and all that on Rama's life and Rishis and this and that. It used to be there. So during that time, I was so much fascinated by Rama and particularly Sita. That was something which was for me like 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 an icon in front of me to have a Sita Devi mother like that. That was the kind of feeling. And during those days, when I was maybe around 8 or sixth or seventh class. That may be around, maybe about 11, 12 years. That was the time one of the teachers in my school, and then that girl, lady, she said after the class, you come down to my house. I said, okay. I just went to her house, and then she was alone, and I was there. She asked me to sit down, and she sat at my feet. I asked me to sit on top, and then she said, you know what? Why don't you sing that Ram Bhajan, Vipare Ramarasam? I mean, I just don't know music, and the only thing I heard was from Balamurali, and then when I sang that, she said, "Wow, it's really touching my heart." So that was the first thing which really inspired me. That means to say, it is not the music. It's not that I'm a famous singer, good singer, or anything like that. But probably the way that I devoted, way that I sang, well, that's what is appealed to her. Further, when another few days, this was going on, lingering in my mind, and then afterwards, another few days later, there was a class, general class. There was some discussion going on. What will you become when you grow big? So everybody is saying that I want to become master, I want to become headmaster, I want to become this, that. Like the school children imagination. When it came to me, then I was just holding it because I was thinking in my mind. And then somebody, the others, they said, come on, say fast so that you can go for it. Then the others only prompted, saying that, after all, he is doctor's son. He'll either become a doctor or engineer, something like that. Let's go ahead, move ahead. We just moved ahead. But in my mind, I was thinking that, look at my doctor. My father is a doctor. He had his own problems. And everybody has his own problems. So somebody who is something which is really beyond all these things, immediately my mind went to Vasishtha. Said, look at Vasishtha, how peaceful he is. He is supposed to be somebody guiding Rama, this, that, and all those things. Then it came to me that why we don't have such Vasishthas today. We don't see such Vasishtha. So therefore, how to become Vasishtha? What is that which makes us? All these questions came up, but then they just did not come like passing questions. They went deep into me. And then I asked my mother, she said, every week we do the drama play of Vasishtha, Vishwamitra, Valmiki, this, that, and all that, but then we don't see any Vasishthas around. Then my mother said that, those days rishis were there. Today they are the Swamijis. Oh, it is like that. Okay, probably they will help me to guide how to become something like that. That was my purpose, goal of life. And came to know, if I can really search for God, probably that's what makes it like that. Believe it or not, at least about 20, 25 various Swamijis who came to our place, I was trying to meet them. And 9, 10-year-old boy going to meet a Swamiji, just not possible because that they have so much of fort around them. And then people, they kind try to drive you away. Your children, don't mess up with this. Swamiji is very pious, serious, and then this, that, all kinds of things. So desperate that I said that there seemed to be no end to my journey. No end to my journey. So then that day I was really so affected by that. And then I asked my mother, I said, what is this? I just could not go to any of them. And they don't even allow me anywhere near. And they want me to just get out from there. Kind of struggle that I went through in trying to meet them. I just don't want to get into all the details of the story, but that was the thing. My mother immediately suggested, why do you want to go to all the Swamiji? Somebody who has knowledge and everything. Is your own brother-in-law, your own sister's husband. And then he is the best in our house, and he is the best in that area. And he's highly knowledgeable. And then he's going to come in the next week, next month. So why don't you meet him? Oh, that's a wonderful idea. And I waited for 1 month or something like that. And then my brother-in-law came. He's the eldest of my eldest sister's husband. And then he came. And moment that he got down at the railway station, there were 30, 40 people to receive him. I was a small little chota fellow there. And I said, let me 2, 3 days go. And then afterwards I will meet him. Meanwhile, it so happened before he came, about a week ago, week before or 10 days before, we had a yogi coming to our school and he performed some yoga asanas and all that. I was there watching him doing all kinds of contortious portions and the positions and this and that. I was not impressed in the sense that yoga may be part of it. I don't know very clearly, but then I said that I'm looking for God realization. That is something which is very uh, paramount for me. None of these things. Then what happened? I came out of the after that show class and all that. I came out next year, so I saw him moving with all the sweeper kind of people and all that. People who do not have any credentials. I said it's okay for him and being with that. It's his whatever it is. It didn't affect me. But the next day, when after these days, when my brother-in-law came, Shastriji came, and I was waiting for 3 4 days till this thing settled down. Then I came early from the school. He is not home. Then I asked my mom, where is he? Maybe he has gone out to meet somebody outside, so he'll come back home soon. And then so I was so desperately waiting because that was like the day that my doors will be open, something like that. And then I was waiting, and then I saw at 6 o'clock or so, he came home. Wow, I was excited. But along with him, that yogi came. That was complete contrast. And not only that, they both went into the room, and then the yogi was teaching my Shastriji asanas. My God, this man is learning from him, and then I'm going to learn from him something. That was completely shattered. That completely shattered. I said, no, I'm not going to talk to him anything, tell him anything, because my idea of reaching God, finding this, finding that, whatever it is, I just want to become like Vasishtha, something like that. And then after that, I said, come what may, my life might go away, waste, but I must become myself that way. So that prompted me. From that day onwards, for the next 3 4 years, I used to sit in my mosquito net in the night. Everybody sleeps. I would sit down, try to meditate. Meditate means think of God, think of Rama, feel His presence, feel her presence. See, so this was going on. Maybe I would get sleep. I fall asleep, but then 2 hours, 3 hours later, again sit up and then think like that. On and on it was going on up to finish. I finished my school, college, my school. I was supposed to go to college, and then engineering college. One of the best engineering colleges those days was in Bhopal, the engineering college. But then my interest of going to Bhopal is from there. I will be very closer to Himalayas. Overnight journey, I can reach Himalayas. So any 3 4 5 days holidays, I can go there. Go in search of these people who are there. Almost like 5 years, I might have made about 10, 11 trips to Himalayas, going around various stages. And then we didn't have money because, student community, what money we have. So somewhere, some bus conductor would help me to get into, and then some ashram I would stay. Try to listen to the people, what they would say, what they ask for. During that time, I also formed a kind of a club in our college, and then we had a few friends together. Daily used to do satsang. That was the time I came to know beginning Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So those things really inspired me, Ram Tirtha, all this. And during those days, one of those days that desperately I was looking for somebody or the other, then I saw Anandamayima, one of the great saints of earlier. The moment she saw me from a distance, she waved her hand, asked me to come here, and her disciples took me there. And then I touched her feet. I felt very pious. And then, but I couldn't stay there because she was going to Calcutta and I was going to Bhopal. And then there was some people I came across, some sages. Then, but at the same time that my sadhana, my practice of meditation was going on. Then when started experiencing various experiences, at that time he said, one of the Swamijis was there, these are not anything else, but then these are the pure experiences of the sadhana. This is what Patanjali says, this is what the books say. like that. Until that time, I had never read any book. And then he only encouraged me, read all the histories, life histories of the saints, because they will inspire you. So Ramakrishna Mahamsa, Vivekananda, Sharda Devi. Oh, such a rich literature, such rich information that we have, all those things. For all the holidays, I never used to come back home. You can imagine what would happen to the heartbroken condition for my parents. And then my family members, everybody was fixed that they thought that I'm lost. And at that time, they had one last hope that they wanted my brother-in-law, Shastriji, to talk to me. Then afterwards, I said one thing, I finished my engineering. I came here and came to Bangalore because he used to live in Bangalore. In he built up conversation, talking to us. When we talked to, then said, wow, you're such a great seeker and you have solved those things. They are there recorded in all our Veda and Upanishads, and several sages talked about it. Bhagavad Gita talks about it. I said, I have not read anything, I haven't seen anything. Because in North India, it's hardly these things are available, particularly in a place like Bhopal, Thursday. He said, no, no, you should read that. That's when I started reading. And somewhere 1970s I started. And then, oh, such fascinating literature, extraordinary, wonderful ideas. And Shastriji was the person. After several days, Shastriji asked me, Array, you are all those things, but why did you never talk to me, discuss me? We are in the same family together for 10 years that I know you. I mean, you are born in my lap, and I know you, right? And everybody talks about you, make a wrong comment about you, but you never spoke to me. Then I told him whatever the incident that happened. Oh, that was a silly incident. I was there. I was also seeking for somebody. Yogi is there. Okay, let me learn something about yoga. One day, 2 days, I went. Third day, I was also disappointed. I came out. Those 3 days distanced us for almost like 10 years. So anyway, so afterwards we made a journey continuously together. Then meanwhile, I had gone to Kanyakumari, and then Eknath Ranade had a great respect for him. He invited me, come to Kanyakumari, and then you'll be here. Training is there, life focus training and yoga training and all that. Until that time, like many people have it, I always used to consider that Vedanta, philosophy, meditation, these are all the things which are supposed to be spiritual. And yoga is something for the physical fitness and body to be good and this and that, like that. So I didn't pay much attention to yoga, though I was good student of yoga and I was athletic. Actually, I was an athlete, so therefore, body level I didn't have any issues at all. All that was my deep inside yearning that was there. That yearning, when it is quenched, then that was the thing when I said, okay, let me try to understand the holistic approach. Patanjali gave us a beautiful idea. When I read Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it gave us the whole idea, and then Shastriji helped me to understand that whether it is pranayama, whether it is asanas, all these things can be used for going to the deeper level, subtler level, finding out yourself. And another very important part of this journey is that Professor Shastri is a chemistry professor. To the core, he is a scientist. And absolutely, absolutely, he would not deviate from the science. He says only when science cannot explain, we can go to something which is basically a beyond the science kind of an expression. But whatever falls in the realms of science, we should not mystify those things. He was very clear about it. So because of that reason only that, and he also said, you can look at Upanishad, you look at Bhagavad Gita, very scientifically, logically. These are the principles that he laid down. And then at the time also that he was very clear, he was very happy with me because I independently told him, see, you do all kinds of things, but what about your life? What about your learning, earning and all that? I said to him, Shastriji, I decided before even going to engineering college, I divided the life into two parts. One is called as life and the other is livelihood. I'll make my engineering for livelihood. I don't depend upon anybody. He never wanted anybody to be a parasite. So therefore, I earn my living. But my life is in spirituality. My life is in Vedanta. My life is giving solace to the people. And that is what he says. The knowledge of Vedanta is something Sarva Dukkha Kshayakari, Sarva Saubhagyadayani. Takes away your dukkha and gives you a solace. And if this can give, let me try to work on that. As many people as possible that can do it. So till today, I have followed the same principle, worked for 10, 12 years, and I have some uh, pension that comes, takes care of my livelihood. But my life is for the Vedanta and yoga. That has been there. So this is the way that I went in my journey. And in the process that how many people I met, how many people guided me, how many different ways is something which is extraordinary. In fact, right from Mahesh Yogi, I met him, I attended 3-day program. Swami Chinmayananda's early Gita Jnana Yajna and also Kathopanishad thoughts that he gave at Bhopal. I attended those things. And then later on, I went to Himalayas and then met Krishnanandji and then some Prabodhananda. So many people were there. So all those people. What this say that the person in Rishikesh Swamiji. So I went to his ashram also, and then all those things. And everywhere, everybody has contributed understanding in all those things. That was a fascinating thing about that. And scientists, yes, I met several scientists and who had discussions with me, and that's like scientists like P.C.G. Sudarshan, one of the most profound physics uh, professor from India, and then he lived in Austin in USA. And then we went Joseph Sami. So all these people were there. We had that profound scientific discussions with that. It happened with all those things. What really happened is that whether I talk about Upanishad, whether I talk about Upanishad Vedanta, all those things, I cannot deviate from the logical, scientific, sequential form of presentation, of understanding the things. Once I understand that, I pass on this. There is another very important aspect that I would say that when I was reading the Upanishads and Shastras, what really impressed me was when the Rishi says Ishavasyamidam Sarvam, Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Inesha Upanishad, it did not appear to me like he is trying to give you some philosophy. It's like a spontaneous expression, of expression that comes from him, saying that the whole thing is nothing but divinity. Idam sarvam ishavasyam, it's nothing but occupied by God or nothing but God. If he's saying that, he's not convincing anything, he's giving a statement. That means he has that experience. If one could have that experience, there are two ways. Either I can dismiss him saying that, well, he's talking about another world, probably not this world. But who is the loser? Not him, me. Or another thing is I say that, wow, great sentence, and then I pass on that sentence. I keep talking to people about that sentence. I miss it. So in both the cases, I said, no, if he had an experience, I must also get that kind of an experience. That intense desire, intense yearning, quest drawn me into this area. So
Beautiful.
In the beginning, I was not very comfortable about people doing yoga, research, and therapy, and this and that, yoga for stress management, and all those things. Talking, I was trying to struggle with that idea, but then later on, I got a very beautiful idea within me, a model within me, and that is like a pyramidal concept. Pyramid always has a large base, and then as it goes up, then becomes narrower and narrower. So to create that large base, that we need people who give yoga for this, for that, for beauty, for all that. It brings people together. Out of that thousands of people who come there, at least one person come in that direction. Then that's the benefit of it. This is what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatata siddhayet. Out of millions of people, one will get into this direction. Yatataamapi siddhanam kaschin mam vete tattatha. One who reaches me is only just one person, not all of them. In that proportion, basically, people come in this direction. But then it does not mean, because people do not come in that direction, does not mean that we should stop doing that work also, this work also, because that inspires people to come forward into this. And second thing is that a lot of times people think that, when we talk about all this, very handful of people will come. Not many people are interested. But that is the secret of the whole thing itself. It's like the way that the whole room is dark. One light is good enough to see that it light and brighten the whole room. That's it. That's the way it works.
Very nice. So that was a beautiful story, Raghuram Garu. Marvelous experiences you've had, meeting several people within your family itself, and also the places you have visited. And you trot around the world, inspiring people every year. You have
Right.
you have been influencing in numbers, large numbers. So that said, you mentioned one person goes to reach God, or you are inclined, but all but divine beings, whether we are aware of it or not. But where does that awareness come from? If you're making a difference within yourself and outside, how does that expression come about is what I wanted to find out from you.
Every time, you see, for this, the one experience which I would like to share with you, normally, it's a very, anyway, it's okay. My father was not well. When I finished my engineering, came back, and then, old age, and basically had some issues and all that. At that time, I was in the peak of my experiences. So therefore, that when I'm in my room, I'm always in that state of samadhi or experience of bliss and all that things. And then for 5-6 hours I was there and then come down. My father immediately looks at me, Raghu, there's like this, like that. He would say 100 other complaints about the people. And I'm not in a mood to listen to all those things. Because there is no solution and this continues like that. And he doesn't change. He even suggested that, why don't you think of God? Don't think of all these things like that. But, and then he's what he is and my mother is what she is. One day, when I just finished my meditation or whatever it is, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon in my room, that was the time that we had coffee, typically. So that moment, like a spark, it came to me. It's an extraordinary, wonderful way. That is, after all these experiences, all these ideas that I have, if I do not become myself at my dad's level of conversation and give him solace, how can I expect him to come to my kind of a conversation level? Neither high or not low, but degree of purity, whatever that is, just a word more of something. My God, how many months I've done this mistake? I did not connect with him. That occurred to me so strongly. Immediately I came down from my room. I went to the kitchen. My mother was making coffee for Dad. And then I stood there. I said, is coffee ready? She looked at me with fear. And then she said, I'm mixing coffee for Dad. I'll give it to him. Then I'll come back and make coffee for you. Immediately she changed her sentencing. No, this you take it. I'll make it for him later. You see, that's changed what she has done. It insulted me so much. That means to say, I threatened my mother so much. My spirituality threatened my mother. that she felt that I'm looking for my priority than him. I said, no, give me that coffee. I give it to him. She looked at my face with lost her breath. She said, you give it to him? I mean, you never even talk to him and then you want to give the coffee to him? I said, yeah. And then you can make my coffee and your coffee and we can drink both of us, for both of us. And I went to dad. He was sitting there and doing some writing or something like that. I kept the coffee there. He looked at my hand. The kind of shock he had on his face, turned to me and said, you brought the coffee? What happened to mom? His worry is what happened to mom, therefore I brought the coffee.
Mhm.
Wow, that was such a big lesson. I said, no, she's busy with making coffee and doing this. So I thought I will, anyway, I was coming here, so I brought the coffee here. And then, of course, we sat down. That was one day I said, let him talk what he wants to talk. Let him listen to. Let me be a listener. In fact, I just recollected the Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. I mean, at that time I had read that also. There, Govinda Siddhartha, what have you achieved after these 9 years of strong, sincere penance that you have done? Siddhartha said, now I can listen. Wow, I felt listening was so difficult. And now, without any, Shankaracharya also subscribes to those ideas and all that. That was so wonderful. And I listened to them again, again. 2 months later, he was completely bedridden and he was on the wheelchair. 2 months later, he said, let's play badminton outside. He could do that. That transformation has come because he found in me a good friend, good somebody that he can converse with. That gave him main idea that I need to connect with the people the way that they are. And it is not the question of whether it is Muslim country or Arabic country or Hindu country or Christian country, anything. Therefore, it helped me to travel all over in the world, about 60 countries, and connect. My job is not to stay in a five-star hotel or something like that and then organize some talk and then I go and give a talk. No, always prefer to stay with them, teach them how to do the cooking, how to organize their kitchen, help them that way, understand what they do it. I had many places in Germany and all that. Children were going to the school. I said, come on, let me also go with you on a bicycle to the school. So I dropped them in the school and came back. So I became part of their life. When I became part of their life, they also try to explain to me, understand, make me understand what their culture, what their big. Then I found one thing that if you do not have this rigid boundary of my food, my this thing, my caste, my, you know, world is full of wonderful people, extraordinary wonderful people. I have almost like 200 to 300 teachers in Turkey. They all connect with me so nicely. And like that same way that I have so many people in Ukraine, China, we have nice, wonderful group. So like that, the most wonderful aspect of it is that uh, probably this has given me an idea to present the ideas the way that they would like to listen to it rather than my way of talking about it. Made them-
Very beautiful. Again, inspiring words and journey also.
Mm.
See and learn from. Um, so yes, you have mentioned about books. Did you have any formal training as such, apart from the acquaintances you have picked up in your journey?
Actually, formally, I have not learned Sanskrit. Formally, I have not learned any Vedas or Upanishads. But whenever I would hear any quote from anybody, immediately I pick up that quote and go to read the book's original text and see that. Not only the Upanishads and Vedas, but also read Quran and Bible and Mormon's book and all those things that I don't have any uh, hesitation going to that, and then what it is said like that. And only formal training, I should say, is that when I went to Kanyakumari for 3 months, and that was the time where we formal training of yoga, formal training of regular talks on Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita was there. Actually, it also happened, Kanyakumari I happened to go because, see, as I told you that we started conversing between Shastriji and myself, and my brother-in-law is. One day it occurred to me that when I read whatever that he quotes, he says, I read it from the Upanishad. I say that everywhere, unless until you sit down at the feet of the teacher and then learn it, I am sitting with him like brother-in-law. Whereas Sagurumai Pavachet, Samit Panihi, Shrotriam Brahmanishtam is the way that Upanishad talks about it. I should not just sit with him and listen to these things. I should also go to the place where he becomes a teacher. I go and join there as a student. In this inquiry, I came across that he goes to Kanyakumari to give talks to life worker training in Kanyakumari, these youngsters who go there. That's where I asked Eknathananda, please make me as one of the students of life worker, but I don't want to become a life worker in Ekanta Kendra. He said, you can come here, stay anytime, and any classes that you attend, you're part of us. He was so kind. That's why I went there, and then suddenly, after my going there a week later, Shastriji came, and my sister also came at that time, children, looked at me and he was shocked. He was surprised. He said, you are here? I said, I'm here not like your brother-in-law, I'm here like a student. So that's how our bondage has become very, very strong.
Beautiful. I have heard you you were focusing on the experience right from very early.
Yes,
childhood.
right.
So that is the beauty of your journey that we
Yeah.
can see. Now, when did it strike to you? When did it come to you that you want to share the knowledge to others, now going beyond yourself? Instilling that spark or igniting the spark in others as well. When did that journey begin?
Yeah, one thing that happened was I was having a lot of experiences, a lot of different kind of experiences, and then they all match with whatever that our uh, great saints who have gone through those experiences, and also the books that talk about it. It was so clearly matched with that. But then it was not enough. I need to come out of this experience also. See, one simple idea is that experience is still something which is outside. Being is something which is yourself. You need to come out of that experience to the state of being. When Ramakrishna Paramahansa was reading Totapuri when he came, that is what Totapuri guided Ramakrishna, saying that you need to get out of this. That gave me such a big struggle at that time, big idea, that once we come out of that being into the state of being, then we can integrate all kinds of ideas together. Whether it is Bhakti Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Raj Yoga, everything can be united together. I looked at from the same perspective, it was very easy. Once this kind of relief came, that all these things, then that experience and the experience with my father, that made me to, that was the time that I realized that I can connect to the people at whatever level that they are. So, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Nabuddhi Vedam Janayet Ajnanam Karma Sanginam, that Ajnana is not a derogatory way Krishna said it. He said it that they still have to do certain activities in the world. They are involved in that. Don't give them an idea of give up everything and something like that. Let them do it. Nabuddhi Vedam Janayet Ajnanam Karma Sanginam. So that way, then I started connecting with the people, and that happened when in 19, say about 80s, 80, 81, a little earlier than that. Then I could see that if I tell some ideas, people will immediately relate with me. And then children, how beautifully the children relate with me at that time. that they became my like friends. They could never think that I'm an elderly person. They always used to consider me that as one of them. So I'm part of their whole game, everything and all that. In the process, I see that they are molded. Molding was something which is very important for me. Their upbringing is something which was very important for me. It was very good. It was a nice, beautiful experience. And like that, several experiments I did it in my journey.
Then you got you with others have founded the Yoga Research Institute.
Then what happened? This Shastriji is the person who said, he asked me, what about marriage? I said, with my ideas, my these things, who will marry me? And they want somebody who can really be in the world, go around with the world and all that. That I don't fit in that kind of thing. So therefore, I don't have an idea, and I myself never even had an idea to have that. Know somebody who is similar like that, and then also committed to the work like that you are thinking about. So why don't you get married? So that's how prompted Nagaratna came to. We both got joined together, and then they planned this yoga therapy and all this work because she's a medical doctor and Nagendra was a scientist and then research and all that. At that time also that my idea is that yes, let us have research and then all those things, but more important thing is we need to encourage people to go for spiritual experience because my idea is, the more and more that you read about all the Indian scriptures, Indian culture and everything that you see, we can create a better human being. And not only for India, but for the whole world, we can do that. Like, for example, look at the character of Rama, look at the character of Hanuman. We have such wonderful, illustrious characters who are there. And all these ideas that we have in this culture, one can become like that. That should be the goal and purpose of this center. Yes, we need to put it in the scientific spirit so that elite people will be attracted towards this. Scientists will be attracted towards that. But that is the like a bite, but real journey is for the spirituality. And in my context, a lot of people I could put them in that direction, whether my doctor friends in Germany or my other friends in Turkey or the people who are there in uh, this thing, Romania or all those countries. So they really like me in that direction. That whenever I go there, we have this kind of discussions going on.
Well, there are so many questions to ask you, but one thing I would like to, I asked about your training. Follow-up question on that is, you said you did not undergo any formal training in Sanskrit. And where did this memory, smriti, come in you? You can cope so much. And what is the secret behind it? Or were you a gifted person, extraordinary, or yes?
I was gifted probably in passion to read. So myself and my brother used to sit together and read any book and every book that we come across passionately. So I read so many other texts and all those things. But when it came to spirituality and my commitment was for that, my interest is in that. There is nothing else but that. A passion was there and also my reading ability was there. So therefore, it retained in me. If you are, many times what happens is that maybe very tough Sanskrit quotation, something like that, maybe from somewhere in Bhagavatam. And if I'm really impressed by that, one time hearing just stays in memory, it never goes away. Just to interestingly say one episode, when we were all school children, myself, my brother and all that, we used to play dramas for the club. and also sing songs and all that. Those days I used to sing one song,
Mm.
which was an absolutely colloquial Telugu song, because you are Telugu, you can understand that. They said it is Yanki Patalu.
Mm.
Yanki Patalu was very sweet book, and there Yanki Natoti Raye, and then he says that we will go to Yankataramana and all that, that was there. And there was one particular phrase that he used, that is Unda Kuttukalano Kottadu Kundadi. Like that, it was such a very simple Telugu expression.
Mm.
Gunde Kuttukalano Kottadu Kundadi. Like that, she expresses herself. Venki. I was supposed to give a talk on Narada Bhakti Sutras that one day. And that one sutra that is there, when I was hovering over that sutra and walking in the Lal Bagh, suddenly it occurred to me that, wow, this is what Enki said. That means it's such a wonderful divine text. And I always felt it that way, but I clearly understood that. It was morning 5:30.
Mm.
And then, but I don't know the details of it. I don't know where the book is. But one person I can trouble anytime with all that kind of nasty questions is my brother. Immediately called Hyderabad. My brother received the call and he was shocked. 5:30, somebody from Bangalore calling. Is everybody okay? Then I realized how awkward thing I did it. I said, no, everybody's okay, everybody is fine. I came out for walking. I just wanted to find out from you, you used to sing that song, Enki. Can you please give me that literature of that song? I said, is this the time that you should ask me this question? Don't you find a better time? Put everybody into the shock here and all that. Anyway, after that, he could not sleep and he dug into his books and all that. By about 8 o'clock, 8:30, he gave me that text. This was the kind of a passion that I had about anything that we read. I mean, if I today say that somebody, Enki Patalu, is something which is spiritual, nobody believes me. That is the kind of thing. And I play with all the, I like all these things and then wonderful way.
So,
One thing for me, the spiritual journey is a very pleasant and very nice. It's a festival like journey. It's not what people think, very serious and very head going kind of thing. There is nothing like that.
beautifully said. Uh, there are so many things. You were a son, you were a great student, I'm sure, whether you picked up science or spirituality. You were a husband, you're a father, you're a grandfather too. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you have done justice playing those roles very well. And so when you see people around you,
Yeah.
what is it that kind of, I mean, uh, tells you about life, purpose of life, and where does it all go to? This carrying knowledge, sharing experiences. If I'm making sense to you, please shed some light on that.
See, life has two important things that are there. That's how our Vedas,
Mm-hmm.
they're actually, mm, structure of the Vedas are like that.
Mm-hmm.
Life has got a core and life has peripherals. Peripherals is the Karma Kanda and the core is the Jnana Kanda. Peripherals are take care of your all the other activities, like the way that what is the food that you eat, what are the clothes that you make, and how that you organize your year, month, this, that, what is the Indian calendar. All those things are peripherals. And peripherals continue to change and all those things. Like the way there's one time that people used to use the stone or wood to prepare for fire, and they used to keep that fire for the house, which is called as Nanda Dipa. Today we don't have to do that because we can come out of it. So like that, peripherals keep continuously changing. But then the core never changed. core is the spiritual journey. Essence of this culture is that. Like the way that I always keep saying that the core of Vivekananda said it. Actually, I'm sorry, it's Vivekananda who said it, and with that I could see that Vivekananda said. Somebody asked him in America, Vivekananda, that how do you say that this culture, which is several thousands of years, survived today vibrant, whereas many other cultures at that time, Mesopotamian, Babylonian, and Incas and pagans and all that, they have gone down the history books. Vivekananda gave a very beautiful reply. He is a genius that way. He gave a reply saying that each culture has a narrow current core, and that narrow current decides how long that culture survives. That was a beautiful statement. And when you look around also that you can see that narrow current. I say that in Japan the narrow current is miniature. Everything is small. America has big road, they have small roads. Big car, they have small cars. People also tiny puny. So everything is small. England has a narrow current as the regality. Everything is royal. All Buckingham Palace and this palace and that palace, Trafalgar Square. You look at everything is like that. American culture is the business, money. That's why the skyline of every city in America is nothing but two tall buildings, insurance and bank buildings. So that is their temples. Like that in India, when you come to, spirituality is the core of this culture. You do anything, you do for the sake of spirituality, nothing less than that. But people take some time to understand what is that spirituality, how to go directly into spirituality. They are going around in the peripherals. In the peripheral also, not too far away, but closer and closer and closer, they try to come in the form of they come closer to, say, some temples and then closer. You see, that is what is the journey that takes. I always say that the land, the place, the locality that where we live, a child can go and play in the park, the same within 2 kilometers distance, and then a school is there. And then I can also go to college to attend the college and then work. But at the same time, as I grow, there are there are cultural centers where nice, wonderful talks go on. I attend those things. And again, I have Ramakrishna Mission, Sharada Math, and then by the side of it, we have Shankar Math. So this is way our journey to the end goes in that direction. So everywhere that's in India, for everybody, the hint is always there. If you look at, just open the eyes and see that life purpose is given. So easy to see that how you, what was materialistically so important at one point of time, just drop it off. You don't even bother about it. And you go towards all these ashrams and then doing service there, doing this, doing that. It becomes so nice to see that. So this culture has to be actually replicated in the other cultures. Because in the other cultures, very difficult to grow. See, age is going on, age goes on you. And according to the age, journey will not be there in the life. That was the problem. Then age becomes like a burden. Whereas in this culture, we have such a beautiful organization that's going on. Of course, a lot of it is still remaining in the South India because of the influence of the world outside that was disturbed in the North India. But we'll come back to that. That's the idea. Purpose of life, journey of life is nowhere else they have thought of it. The purpose and journey in Sanskrit, when we say it, it is Purusha Artha. Artha means meaning. Purusha means having come here. What is the Artha? We have very clear picture of Purusha Artha.
Beautiful. Such a inspirational hour spending with you, speaking. Thanks so much for sharing details of your journey, your life, your story. And thank you all for visiting
us. Just one more thing I would like to say. We are a huge family. I've got 4 sisters and 7 brothers, and I'm somewhere in between. But for my journey, such a lovely coordination, cooperation was there from all those people and their children and all this, everybody. Because the simple thing is that right from the childhood, when I was groping for the solutions, it looks like they were all concerned about it. They're very deeply concerned, helplessly concerned, not being able to help anything. What can we do? But therefore, that family structure that we have created in India, family structure, is extraordinary. It's so extraordinary. It's a wonderful spiritual support. We need to look at that way.
Yeah, definitely. Family shapes you, and totally agree. Such a blessing. And you, and thanks to your family for bringing you out here for us
Thank you. Right.
to witness it ourselves and learn from the glimpses. And thank you all, viewers, and I'm sure you are inspired as much as me. And please listen on. Raghuram Garu is sharing a lot of information. He picked the topic of yoga and Vedanta. He's integrating the yoga of present day to our ancient wisdom, Vedanta, and beautiful references have been given. Very helpful. That is all I can say. Thank you again. Thank you, Raghuram Garu. Beautiful journey. Namaste.
Thank you.
Fired.